My name is Courtney Pierre Joseph. I am an assistant professor of history and African American studies. I teach classes on African American history and culture to undergraduate students, as well as classes just on history and the study of history. I want to talk a little bit about Black history as it pertains to Chicago, and how that, again, feeds into our current moment. Jean-Baptiste Point-Dussab, a Black man of Haitian descent, who founds, in terms of settling as a person who was not from this land, but starts a business and home settlement in Chicago. It's really critical to realize that we're talking about a Black man here in the era of slavery. So what we know about Dussab is from oral traditions, from Black and Indigenous people who talk about his name over time, and from the few documents where he is mentioned, which is the documentation of like white European entrepreneurs who do business with him. The funny thing, and it is actually probably the most colonial thing ever, is that the person who buys the home, Jean-Baptiste Point-Dussab's home, from Jean Lalim is John Kinsey, the man who is better known as the father of Chicago, the man who actually moves into Dussab's house and has his daughter-in-law write one of the first histories of Chicago, in which she declares, "My father-in-law started this girl." I also will say, changing a sign and putting up a statue doesn't do the whole thing, right? That's not enough, but it's a good step in terms of starting to like rectify a little bit of that, right? Like, we don't have this park. We have all sorts of other parks, all sorts of other monuments. There was like a Lincoln thing, which, I mean, I get it, Land of Lincoln, right? Like, I totally get it, but that was there forever. There's all these sorts of things. Why aren't we here? So I would say, urging our mayor, urging your aldermen, especially people who are in Chicago. Fred Hampton represented a Black young man who was doing the community interracial organizing that was necessary for change. And he lost his life for it. Fred Hampton has this file open against him, keeping track of what he's doing. And on the night of, in December of 69, I should say, while sleeping in his bed with his girlfriend, was murdered by police. And they, again, claimed that it was exchange of gunfire. But if you're asleep and you wake up to the noise of gunfire, like, what does that even mean? And so, I mean, there's documentary about this, that there was a big case around his murder, his execution, but they were found to, be acquitted. There's gotta be a bigger understanding of how can we say that it's okay for a 21-year-old to be asleep in his bed with his pregnant girlfriend and his friend in the next room trying to get rest, and a police raid happens on him. 1919 race riot in Chicago. I think it's important for us to start calling what they were, though. It's a race massacre is what happens, in a similar fashion that happens in Tulsa, Oklahoma, similar fashion that happens in all of these places, that big and small. And so what happens in this particular instance is that you have a 17-year-old boy, Eugene Luntz, 17-year-old boy. He is swimming, apparently makes his way over to the white side of the beach and is stoned to death, drowns. And so protests begin, right? There's an anger for justice, a call for justice amongst Black people to the police department. Like, you have to do something. They don't do anything. A shot goes off, that's that. And now you've entered in not only the police, but white mobs are now descending into the Black areas of Chicago to wage war. Black people do defend themselves, but this is a white mob unleashed in the city, and taking their aggression out on Black people. That leads to 38 people being killed. In Chicago, the majority of them African-American, more than 350 people injured, more than 1,000 homes of African-Americans burned down and displaced. I think the war on drugs is something that we are also reckoning with right now. And I think it's an important thing, especially for your company and your followers, right? Is like, how do we find ourselves in the era of legalization? And who benefits from that, and what does that look like? The war on drugs is this program started by President Nixon in the 70s. People started to affiliate marijuana, heroin, the like use of drugs of the 60s, conflating that with activism. So this becomes a way to kind of start to like criminalize not only activism, but drug use. We're pushing a narrative that there's a lot of crime and it has to do with drugs. We just got to keep fighting, man. We just got to keep it going, and big and small, but take rest too and do nice things for yourselves and keep learning. And that's what we